I would like to introduce the next topic.
Sure.
Now, we have just really boosted Kyle Shanahan as he deserves. But Iggy and I have a heartfelt criticism of him.
Hmm.
But let's not call it a criticism. Let's call it advice.
Hmm.
Because I think there are things he needs to learn.
Hmm.
I'm not saying he's a bum because he didn't know him,
Hmm.
but there are things he needs to learn. And as an older guy, maybe I could guide him a little bit in this, be a bit of a mentor without being snarky, without criticizing him.
Yeah.
So I want to come back to the fact that he canceled the last day of OTAs and they went bowling.
Mhm.
And I understand it's a team building activity, I suppose. And then, more important, he canceled the mini camp. In fact, Iggy, it was supposed to start today, Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Today. So it's relevant to bring it up today. And it would have been a 3-day camp, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Iggy?
Mhm.
Okay.
That's right.
And I understand, I believe, why he canceled it, because they've had serious injuries and he wants his team whole and productive and competitive when training camp starts at the end of July. So I understand his motives and I appreciate them.
Mhm.
What I'd like to say, Iggy, to you and to everybody watching, I think he made a mistake. And I think had he thought about it, or had he had someone to talk to about it, an older person, maybe his dad, or
Mhm.
maybe someone else, someone could have pointed out there was a middle ground. You don't want to get players hurt on the minicamp starting today, June 15th. Absolutely, we understand it. But you have a rookie defensive coordinator who's learning to be a coordinator, really learning to be a coach.
Mhm.
You have a rookie quarterback who really didn't play a lot in college and needs to learn a lot. Wouldn't these 3 days be productive as learning days?
Yep.
Part of, as you know, Iggy, a lot of coaching in the NFL is teaching.
Mhm.
Teaching.
Mostly teaching. It's mostly
Mostly teaching.
Yeah.
So you could have D'Amico Ryans sitting in a classroom with his defense and go on the board showing film, talking, and then they could break into linebacker groups, you know what I mean, cornerback groups, whatever. This is stuff they're going to have to do in training camp. Well, if they did it then, they would have gotten the basics out of the way,
Yes.
Iggy, and they
Yeah.
could have gone quicker in training camp. Another thing I would say is that Trey Lance,
Yeah.
well, he's picking up a new vocabulary and a new offense. He could be working today on that with the quarterbacks coach and with the head coach. And I'm going to say something else. I know that in the facility down there in Santa Clara, they have film of every game.
Mhm.
Every game. Well, Shanahan can sit down with Trey Lance and say, you are going to run certain plays that Bill Walsh did. Let's see how Joe ran the play. Let's see how Steve ran the play. These are two Hall of Famers. I mean, imagine what that young man could learn.
Mhm.
And I think this is what Kyle has to learn. There are more creative solutions than yes or no. Then we're
It's
doing
like
it. Or
it's
Yeah.
like he sees no use in practice unless there's full speed competition.
Well, he needs to think about that because
Yeah.
what I was going to make one more point. After they do all these things, they could go out on the field and do walkthroughs.
Walkthroughs.
Yeah, and this in this, well, they're not wearing anything. They're just in shorts and t-shirts.
Just because some people learn better by walking through something than looking at it on a board, it's just a different way of learning. It's not physical activity.
That's right, and no one would get hurt.
No.
No one would get hurt.
So
And
here's
they
the thing
would
that's
learn.
happened recently, Dad. Since the NFL has changed their rules to protect players and limit practice time, coaches are trying to get the reps back. And what they do is they increase the intensity, they increase the reps of practice. So they'll have two things going at once, a lot of running. And if you notice, these injuries are running injuries. They're not contact injuries. They're planning and accelerating injuries. So it seems to me that this is a side effect of the league taking the contact out of practices, and coaches still trying to get that work in somehow. And so now you're getting people running too much, overwork injuries in the weight room and on the field. And there's just dial it back. You can keep your players healthy and teach them what you want to teach them.
Yeah, and so what I'm saying is there was a compromise position. And what I liked about Bill Walsh was, I'm going to say, he had the widescreen vision. He understood just about everything that it required to be a head coach, in addition to game planning.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things, Kyle, I guess if you're watching, that you might want to consider is two things, I guess.
Yeah.
One is, can you broaden your screen a little bit?
Yeah.
Instead of canceling minicamp where I get no benefit,
Yeah.
is there a way I can get a benefit without hurting anyone? And I guess another thing I would say, I think, Kyle, part of being a leader is learning how to delegate.
Mhm.
That there are certain things that, like the rules on bump and run in practices, maybe there should have been someone on the field that wasn't Kyle, who was
Yeah.
aware of that one rule and telling guys,
And
remember,
enforcing
you
it.
can't do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think one is to try to widen your vision a little bit, which we all try to do. And sometimes we're successful and sometimes we aren't. And the other is to think of areas where you can delegate so things don't slip through the cracks. Does that sound fair and reasonable, Iggy?
I think absolutely. Yes. It just seems like you're being very generous, but the reason this is important, Kyle, is try to project to the future. Um, Teams that took mini camp off, if they're rebuilding and they're not expecting to contend, okay, fine, whatever. But you're telling everyone that this is a Super Bowl ready team. What if you don't make the playoffs? What if you have a slow start to the season? What if Trey Lance isn't ready week one? What if D'Amico Ryans really struggles the first half of the year? It's so easy to be a Monday morning quarterback and say, well, you wasted 2 weeks in June. Could use those 2 weeks. You didn't do anything. You could have done something. And people do that. I do stuff like that. So we're just telling you that these are really important decisions and all these weeks really matter.
Yes. And I guess from a coach's point of view, coaches really want to be around players.
To
That's what
maximize
they
the time.
do.
Yeah.
That's what they do. They don't have
Yeah.
a lot of time, and this would be this these days would have been very good
And so
to be.
instead of Trey Lance working with Kyle Shanahan right now, he's down with his personal quarterback coach, Quincy Avery, in Atlanta, throwing to Mohamed Sanu, which is good, but not as good as working with Kyle Shanahan.
I don't think so. I don't. Or watching film of Joe Montana do a particular. This is how
Right.
Joe did it, Trey. This is take a look. What do you see? What do you think? Would you do it that way? Or would you do it a little different? Let's work. I mean, boy, wouldn't that be something, Iggy? It's like you and I, if William Faulkner was in the house, right? Say,
Yeah.
this is how Faulkner, his first paragraph. What do you think?
I remember when Shane Day became the quarterback coach 2 years ago and he replaced Scangarello, the first thing he did was show Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Mullins, and CJ Beathard video of Joe Montana backing away from center. How he did it with his footwork, with his left foot first, and he kind of fell away. Now, these are little details that I don't notice, but I post videos online and I'm in contact with coaches who know these things. And one coach called me and was like, what the hell are they doing with their feet? That's very old school. Ask Shane about that. And he was like, yeah, I showed him Joe Montana. We've been watching They're doing it the way Joe did. So this is something 49ers coaches do. There's a lot to learn from these guys.
Interesting,
Yeah.
interesting. It's old school, but it was Joe Montana. It worked pretty well for him.
Yeah. And they have the vault there in Santa Clara. Why not watch it? It just
Yeah.
seems like he could spend time with Quincy Avery anytime. But the time that he could spend with Kyle Shanahan is precious and limited, and Kyle cut it short. Be interesting to see how that works out, but don't do that again, Kyle. I mean, think outside the box. And again,
Yeah.
that was canceled by him. The league canceled the last week of rookie minicamp because of the rookie minicamp violation. This is mandatory minicamp. It's a different thing. Also, one more thing. Kyle Shanahan not only has intense practices in the spring in terms of a lot of running and reps, but during the season, he has 1 day a week where the players put pads on. And that's something that Bill Walsh didn't necessarily do. It's something that the Steelers don't do. A lot of the teams that have fewer injuries just go very light during the week. Something you think about.
Right. And something he could talk to some retired coaches about, and his dad and things like that. He may have the right idea, but again, if Iggy, I like that you brought this up. If I were in that position, I wouldn't just talk to myself.
Yeah.
I would really talk to people that I admired and say, it's not a big deal, but what do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I do well. I mean, I constantly am picking the brains of 49ers analysts and fans. It's something Robert Saleh does really well. He's always open to a good idea and is not discriminating on where it comes from. Kyle, it feels like you have to be in his inner circle to even suggest something to him. So Kyle, maybe you'd be surprised where good ideas come from, man. And you know the difference between a good one and a bad one. So you just listen. Anyway,
I love it.
Chris says, where Walsh was great, he took the time to get to know every player personally and what their strengths and weaknesses on and off the field.
Among other things he did, but also Kyle may do that. As I said earlier, the players really seem to perform for him. So I would not say that Kyle can't do that. My guess is he does.
Ryan asks, Kyle has the confidence that Walsh needed and Walsh has the paranoia Kyle needs?
I don't know. I don't know Kyle's personality. Bill was not paranoid. He was nervous, insecure, depressive. He was not paranoid, as far as I know.
Yeah. Are you skeptical of hyper confident coaches, given that the greatest coach of all time was quite introspective and insecure?
I guess what I think is their demeanor doesn't matter. Can they coach? That's
I just remember during the Chip Kelly years, Chip Kelly had a distinct aura that he carried himself like he invented football. And I remember you being like, man, I covered Bill Walsh. Even he didn't act like this. What the hell is this?
No, he never. No, in fact, Bill could make fun of himself. I don't think that Chip Kelly ever cracked a smile. I don't think the guy has this. He's not sophisticated enough to have humor.
Yeah. Also, advice for Kyle: smile more. You got a nice smile. You could smile more.
I agree. And when he's in public, and I think one of the women on your women's roundtable said that he should be more inviting.
Yeah. Sibilla said that. There's no reason to have an edge.
And more to be smile and to be like more welcoming, because if he's that way with the media, he's being that way with the fans as well. And it's a good idea. Mariucci was very good at that. Mariucci has a very warm personality. He's a good-natured person. And I think, and that's why everybody called him Mooch, and and people liked him because he was so likable. And I think fans did like him.